Okay, we've got some of the threads on this the tops have been flattened slightly. That's all you do. You haven't messed with the strength, the integrity of the tube. Flattening the tops of some of the threads doesn't have any effect on the bending strength of this thing, so don't worry about that. And now this fits over there, fits over the end of that in a way that is dead on. I mean, it moves slightly, maybe a quarter of a millimeter. If you try to slide it around, you can feel it move. We're going to fill that gap with something called G-Flex epoxy. It's a type of epoxy that is microscopically stretchy. Now that sounds like, hold on, I don't want rubber cement anywhere near my pipes. Oh no, we're talking at a molecular level. Most epoxies are virtually glass, and they hit their shear strength and they snap like glass. This stuff will absorb shocks. It's extremely tough. It's the most rugged material that I've found for this type of application. And we're going to use an application tool like a little piece of scrap wood and put a thin coat of epoxy on this stub that's sticking out of the pipe, and a very heavy one in here, well, relatively heavy, so that when we mate them, any excess will be pushed forward, not back into the pipe. That obviously is your biggest risk when dealing with something like this. Is you've got to be aware of and careful of the risks involved in gluing the pipe together, which obviously is not a good thing, right? So here we go. Now before we do that, even though the epoxy would adhere to the roughness of the, in fact it doesn't really adhere, it would form a solid material that would grab this in such a way that adhesion really wouldn't be required. We're still going to double down on that. The vulcanite, it probably would adhere to, but I'm not going to trust that either. So what we're going to do is take this little tiny round tip. It's a grinding tip for a Fordham tool that's a 1 millimeter round ball, and reach inside of here and texture that with deep little golf ball type dents all over it. Stipple the inside of that hole. Reach in there and actually cover it with little holes, little dents rather. And then this is a tiny little saw blade. You can probably see it from the side here better. And with that, we're going to make some lengthwise cuts in this little stub we have sticking out here, so that the mechanical lock is frozen both side to side and up and down, that the glue, the epoxy, will not slip because it's being held in 3 dimensions. So this is like dental work. I like the slow machine for anything that doesn't require fast speed. It's got a little chuck on the end instead of a collet. And you just mount up. This is just like a tiny electric drill, and it will turn at very low RPM. You can maybe see that. It's just barely going around. And with that, I'm going to reach in here and make a bunch of little dents. Now this takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm not going to do them all on camera, but you can probably see them in there. And to get the flash cleared out, because it'll raise the rim of that like a little crater, find the drill bit that's a slip fit into that hole, or if you have them, use a chucking reamer, and then you can cut the flash out of there and just have the indentations remaining. And then I'm going to mount this little guy and make a few cuts through here, only through the teeth, not down into the tube underneath the body of it. And then we're going to glue it. Wait for it to cure, And effectively then we'll be done. The only thing left is to check the airway and clear it. Usually some of the epoxy ends up in the airway, but when that happens, you just take a drill bit like this, one of these tapered ones, put it through there and cut the excess out. So that is it, and I will texture these and be back to show you the gluing steps in a minute.